Ghosts in the dark, Admiral Vexcar stood on the command deck of the Sovereign's Wrath, his 6 arms folded behind his carapace as he studied the tactical display. Before him stretched the outer reaches of the Sol system, humanity's birthworld gleaming like a pale blue jewel in the distance. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he surveyed his fleet, 150 of the Valorian Empire's finest warships. Enough firepower to reduce an entire star system to cosmic dust. "Status report," he commanded, his voice resonating through the bridges. "Crystalline communication system." Subcommander Ilix approached, her smaller frame dwarfed by the Admiral's imposing presence. "All ships report ready, Admiral. The humans appear to have detected our approach. We're intercepting increased chatter from their orbital stations." Dexcar S4 compound eyes glittered with amusement. The humans had barely achieved faster than light. Traveled 2 centuries ago. Their ships were crude chemical propulsion vessels held together with primitive alloys. Intelligence reports suggested their largest dreadnoughts were perhaps 1/10 the size of a Valorian cruiser. "Let them chatter," he rumbled. "Fear makes all species talkative in their final hours." The Valorian Empire had been expanding for millennia, consuming lesser civilizations like a cosmic tide. Humanity would be no different. Another footnote. In the grand chronicle of Valorian conquest, the Admiral had personally overseen the subjugation of 17 species. Humans would make 18. "Admiral," called Sensitech Bricks from his station, "I'm detecting some unusual readings." "Define unusual." The young tech's antennae twitched nervously. "Mass signatures, sir. Very large ones. But when I focus our arrays directly on the coordinates, there's nothing there." Dexcar's attention sharpened. "How large, if the readings are accurate?" "Approximately 3 times the mass of our largest dreadnought. Multiple contacts across a wide area. Impossible." The Admiral moved to the sensor station, his claws clicking against the deck plating. "Show me." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the fleet's approach vector toward Earth. Scattered throughout the system were dozens of red indicators, massive objects that registered on passive sensors, but seemed to vanish when actively scanned. "Sensor malfunction," Dexcar declared. "Run full diagnostics on all arrays." "Already completed, sir." "All systems operational." A chill ran down the Admiral's spine, an unfamiliar sensation for a warrior who had faced the weapons of a dozen species. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels, report any unusual sensor contacts immediately." The responses came quickly. Ship after ship reported identical readings, phantom masses lurking throughout the system, invisible to direct observation, but undeniably present on passive scans. Sir Ilix whispered, "What if the humans have developed stealth technology beyond our intelligence estimates?" Before Dexcar could respond, the communications station erupted in a cascade of alerts. "Admiral, incoming transmission on all frequencies. Source unknown, on screen." The main display shifted to show a human female, her dark hair pulled back in a simple arrangement. She wore a uniform of deep blue with unfamiliar insignia. Behind her, Dexcar could glimpse what appeared to be a ship's bridge, but the controls were unlike anything in Valorian databases. "I am Captain Alina Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet," the human said, her voice calm and measured. "You have entered protected space. Turn your fleet around and depart immediately." Laughter rippled. Across the bridge, several officers couldn't contain their amusement at the audacity of a single human addressing the mighty Valorian fleet. "Human," Dexcar replied, his voice dripping with condescension. I am Admiral Dexcar of the Valorian Imperial Navy. You will surrender your pathetic world immediately, or we will take it by force." Captain Vasquez studied him with eyes that seemed far older than her apparent age. "Admiral, you command 150 ships. We currently have 200 vessels in position around your fleet. This is your only warning." The bridge erupted in fresh laughter. Even Nexcar found himself amused. "Captain, our sensors detect no ships in this system, save your primitive orbital platforms. Your bluff is transparent." "No bluff, Admiral. We've been watching you since you entered our outer perimeter 3 days ago. We simply chose not to reveal ourselves until now." The communication ended abruptly. "Arrogant creatures," muttered Sub-Commander Ilix. "Shall we begin the bombardment, Admiral?" Dexcar was about to give the order when Sensor-Tech Brix cried, "Out in alarm, Admiral. The phantom readings, they're moving." On the tactical display, the mysterious contacts were shifting position, forming a spherical formation around the Valorian fleet. The pattern was too organized, too purposeful to be sensor ghosts. "Sir," another technician called out, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups at multiple coordinates. Whatever's out there, it's powering up." The Admiral's 4 hearts began beating in unison, a biological response to extreme stress that he hadn't experienced in decades. "All ships, battle stations, prepare for the order," died in his throat, as space itself began to change around them. At first, it was subtler, slight distortion in the starfield, like looking through water. Then the distortions grew larger, more pronounced. Light began, bending around invisible shapes, creating halos of twisted radiance against the cosmic backdrop. "By the 7 voids," whispered Ilix. Ships began materializing out of nothingness. Not the crude human vessels they expected, but sleek, organic-looking craft that seemed to grow out of space itself. Their hulls were dark as midnight, covered in patterns that shifted and flowed like living circuitry. They were massive, one easily matching a Valorian dreadnought in size. "Count them," Dexcar ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. 50, 70, 100. The technician's voice cracked. "Sir, I count 212 vessels. They've surrounded us completely." The human ships didn't move like conventional spacecraft. They flowed through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions, sliding between dimensions with fluid grace. Their weapons ports glowed with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. "Admiral," the communications officer stammered, "incoming transmission from the lead human vessel." Captain Vasquez appeared on screen again, but now Vexka could see her ship's true bridge. The human crew members were connected to their stations through neural interfaces, their eyes glowing with the same ethereal light as their ship's weapons. They moved with perfect synchronization, as if they were extensions of the vessel itself. "As I said," Admiral Vasquez spoke calmly, 200 ships. "We gave you a chance to leave peacefully. Will you take it?" Dexcar's mind raced. Everything he knew about human military capabilities was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. But he was a Valorian, Admiral, heir to 1,000 generations of conquerors. Pride ran deeper than survival instinct. "Captain," he said slowly, "I don't know what tricks you're using, but the Valorian Empire does not retreat. Prepare to face the consequences of your defiance." Something that might have been sadness flickered across the human's face. "Admiral, you don't understand what you're facing. We tried to do this the easy way." The transmission ended, and space around the Valorian fleet began to change once more. The human ship started to emit a low harmonic frequency that penetrated through hulls and shields, vibrating in the bones of every crew member. "Sir," Sensor-Tech Bricks called out, his voice tight with fear, "the humans are charging weapons. Energy. Readings are ... impossible. No conventional power source could generate those levels." Admiral Dexcar looked out at the human fleet-sleek predators that had materialized from nothing, armed with technology that defied understanding. For the first time in his military career, he began to understand that the Valorian Empire might have finally encountered something beyond their ability to conquer. The Phantom Fleet was phantom no more, and Admiral Dexcar was beginning to realize that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships or their technology, it was their ability to remain underestimated, until the moment they struck ... as the human vessels began to close formation around his fleet. Dexcar wondered if he would live long enough to report back to the Empire that their expansion had finally met its match. The price of arrogance, the Sovereign's wrath shuddered as gravitational waves washed over the Valorian fleet. Admiral Dexcar gripped his command throne, watching in growing horror as his sensors registered impossible readings from the human vessels surrounding them. "Report," he barked. Admiral Sensor-Tech Bricks' voice quavered. "The human ships, they're not just using advanced technology, they're manipulating space-time itself. They're creating localized gravitational fields, bending the fundamental structure of reality." On the tactical display, the human fleet maintained perfect formation around the trapped Valorians. 212 vessels, each one a masterwork of engineering that seemed to exist partially outside normal space. Their hulls rippled with energy patterns that defied classification. "Sir," Subcommander Ilix approached cautiously, "perhaps we should consider the human offer. Strategic withdrawal isn't surrender, it's tactical wisdom." Dexcar's mandibles clicked in irritation. The Valorian Empire has never retreated from an inferior species. "We will not begin now." A new voice cut through the bridges. Tension. Vasquez, her image appearing unbidden on the main screen. "Admiral, I'm going to explain something to you. Because your actions affect not just your fleet, but the future relationship between our species. I do not negotiate with 73 years ago," Vasquez continued, ignoring his interruption. "A human deep space exploration vessel discovered something extraordinary in the void between galaxies. A derelict ship, older than recorded. Civilization drifting dead in space for millions of years." The bridge fell silent. Even Vexcar found himself listening despite his anger. The ship belonged to a race we call the Architect's beings, who transcended physical existence long before either of our species evolved. Their technology wasn't just advanced, it was revolutionary. It didn't work with the universe's laws, it rewrote them. Behind Vasquez, her crew moved with eerie synchronization. Vexcar could see neural interfaces connecting them directly to their ship's systems. Their consciousness expanded beyond their biological limitations. "We could have tried to reverse engineer their technology, to copy it without understanding," Vasquez continued. "Instead, we chose a different path. We chose to evolve." The image shifted, showing the interior of a human medical facility. Vexcar watched in fascination and horror as humans underwent procedures that merged their nervous systems with quantum processors. Their DNA restructured to interface with technology that existed partially outside normal spacetime. "We didn't just learn to use architect technology," Vasquez explained. "We became part of it. Our consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of flesh and steel. We learned to think in 11 dimensions, to perceive reality as a mutable construct, rather than fixed law. Abomination, Dexkar whispered, but even he could hear the awe in his voice. Evolution, Admiral. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our adaptability. When we found something beyond our understanding, we didn't try to conquer it, we joined with it. The transmission ended, but immediately resumed from a different angle. Now Vasquez appeared to be standing on the bridge of multiple ships simultaneously. Her consciousness distributed across the fleet. You see us as one captain, one ship, but that's not what we are anymore. The Terran Defense Fleet isn't a collection of vessels, it's a single organism with distributed intelligence. We think as one, move as one, fight as one. Dexkar S. Tactical. Mind began to grasp the implications. An enemy that shared instantaneous communication, perfect coordination, distributed decision-making. It would be like fighting a single opponent with 200 bodies. Impossible, he said aloud. No species would willingly surrender their individuality. We didn't surrender it, Vasquez replied. We expanded it. Each of us remains human at our core, but we're connected to something greater. We maintain our personalities, our memories, our essential selves, but we also share in collective wisdom, collective strength. Subcommander Illich stepped forward. Admiral, recommend we open negotiations. This technology ... if we could acquire it. The Valorian Empire takes what it needs, Dexkar declared. All ships, prepare to fire. Target the lead vessel. The fleet's weapons powered up, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and quantum disruptors all locked onto the human flagship. Fire. The space around the Valorian fleet erupted in brilliant destruction. Every weapon in their arsenal discharged simultaneously, creating a storm of annihilation that should have vaporized anything in its path. But as the energy reached the human ships, reality twisted. The attacks didn't strike armor or shields, they simply ceased to exist. Beams bent back on themselves, torpedoes phased out of normal space, disruptors found nothing to disrupt. Status report, Dexkar demanded. Sir, ... Our weapons had no effect. The humans aren't using defensive systems, they're manipulating the fundamental nature of space around their ships. They've created zones where our attacks simply cannot exist. Captain Vasquez appeared on screen again, and now Dexkar could see the sadness in her expression clearly. Admiral, we tried to avoid this, but you forced our hand. Around the Valorian fleet, the human ships began to change. Their hulls became translucent, revealing the quantum architectures within. Energy flowed through patterns that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The ships began to phase in and out of normal space, existing everywhere and nowhere at once. Demonstration number 1, Vasquez announced. A single human vessel approached the Valorian dreadnought Imperial Thunder. Rather than firing weapons, the ship simply passed through the dreadnought's hull as if it were made of mist. As it did, every system on the Valorian vessel shut down. Life support, weapons, engines, everything failed simultaneously. We can phase our ships through yours, Vasquez explained. We can exist in the same space without interacting, or we can choose to interact with specific systems. Your crew is unharmed, but their ship is now completely disabled. The Admiral's 4 hearts hammered against his chest plates. What do you want? Nothing from you, Admiral. We want you to leave. Take your fleet and return to Valorian space. Tell your empire that humanity is no longer the primitive species they remember. We've grown beyond your ability to conquer, and if we refuse, Then we will disable every ship in your fleet and leave you drifting in space until rescue arrives. We have no desire to commit genocide, but we will defend ourselves." Around them, more human ships began demonstrating their capabilities. They moved through space by convincing reality that they were already where they wanted to be. They generated matter from pure energy and dissolved it back again. They created localized time distortions that made seconds stretch into minutes. Dexcar realized with growing horror that humanity hadn't just found advanced technology, had transcended the limitations that bound other species. They existed partially outside the normal universe, able to manipulate its laws at will. "Why reveal yourselves now?" he asked. "You could have remained hidden, let us pass by none the wiser." "Because hiding is no longer an option," Vasquez replied. "Humanity is ready to take its place among the galactic community, but we will do so on our own terms, not as subjects of the Valorian Empire." The Admiral looked around his bridge at his crew beings, who had served with distinction, who trusted him to lead them safely through any battle. But this wasn't a battle anymore. This was a demonstration of power so absolute that resistance was meaningless. "If I order my fleet to withdraw," he said slowly, "what guarantee do I have that you won't pursue us?" The word of Captain Alina Vasquez, representing the collective will of the Terran Defense Fleet. "We seek no conquest, Admiral. We seek only to be left alone to continue our evolution." Dexcar closed his 4 eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships, stand down weapons. Prepare for withdrawal from the Sol system." "A wise choice," Admiral Vasquez said. "Tell your empire this. Humanity remembers its friends and its enemies. Today, you chose to be neither. We hope you will choose to be the former in the future." As the Valorian fleet began its retreat, Admiral Vexcar watched the human ships fade back into invisibility. But he could still feel them out there, watching. From the spaces between spaces, guardians of a species that had evolved beyond the need for conquest. The Valorian Empire would need to reconsider its expansion plans. For the first time in millennia, they had encountered something they could not defeat, could not conquer, could not even truly comprehend. Humanity had transcended the boundaries of flesh and physics, becoming something new while remaining essentially human. And Excar suspected that this encounter was only the beginning of a new age in galactic politics, an age where humanity would no longer be the underestimated newcomer, but a force that commanded respect through demonstration of power beyond imagining. The Silent Watchers had revealed themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same.